All right. Welcome to Falcon Forward. My name is Peter Brecht. I'm here with Mike Tangy. It is, what is it, Tuesday. So we're all over the board on recording dates, Mike, but nonetheless, we're here. We're I don't know, we're gaming the Google algorithm, and we're doing it once a week, and we've been consistent. So good to see you, good to meet up, and we've got a fun topic today. So but first, how's your week going, and what's new at Falcon West?
Yeah, week is going great. Fun family news is our oldest, sophomore in college, back home for the summer. So she came home yesterday. So just like equilibrium in the house now seems to be normal. When she's gone away to school, it's a little different, a little off in the house, and so it feels good. Although I
Yeah.
was reminded by which I may have talked about this on a prior show with you, or just shared with you in a story, but
Mhm.
my new invention would be the override. So we have one of those low flow alarms.
Yeah.
Or not low flow, leak detection system on it.
Right.
If your water runs for an unusual amount of time, you get your phone starts blowing up, and eventually they shut the water off. And the idea is that to tie back to insurance,
Mhm.
water loss is the leading cause of home insurance claims. It's a very big problem for insurance companies, so they want you to put in these leak detection systems,
Yeah.
which is good. But they need to have a college kid from home from school override button. So for that
Fair
first
enough.
hour that they take, that your system's freaking out, think there must be a flood in their house right now. No, it's just college kid home for the summer taking their first shower, and the algorithm or system is not used to that level of water flow for that length of time. So
Man, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I know like I'm not a fan of having apps on my phone. Like the fewer apps I can have on my
yes,
phone, the
yes,
better.
I agree.
It drives me absolutely crazy. Like I have, my wife's phone. She has like folders and folders, and I don't like. What do you do? She's like, yeah, but I do all my stuff on my phone, so it's a different world. But it's a
Yeah.
phone. I want to call you, text you, and check email. Like
Oh
that's
my
kind of
gosh,
it.
100%.
Yeah,
It's
and so now I gotta have this app on my phone to like override the water. That's the one thing. I just want a button on the meat on the thing, right?
Yeah, and then it's just like the alerts and everything. Then that
Yeah,
you think the world is ending, and it's no, no.
right,
Just someone's just taking a shower in our house right now. So how
right,
do you disable these 8 things coming at you that get
exactly.
progressively louder and more angry at you?
Oh, crazy. When I was growing up, so I'm the oldest of six kids, and my youngest brother is his name's Andrew. He's a pilot, or becoming a pilot rather. And just like watching him has been awesome, just like his growth. But the reason I'm sharing this is because as the oldest of six kids, I remember there were five of us before he was born, obviously, if you do the math, and we had to use a timer. So we had a
Uh,
3 minute timer for a shower,
yeah,
and you didn't want to be the first person in the shower because the water was cold.
yeah.
So like you
You're
would like
free.
game it to
30
where
seconds with me.
it,
Yeah,
if I stay in bed long enough, like my other brother's gonna have to go take a shower real quick, and then I'll have warm water. That was great, and you don't want to be the last one because then there's a
yeah.
whole thing. And then I asked Andrew, I'm like, so like, do you guys still have the timer in the this was in the bathroom? He's like, time what timer? He's like, I take like 15-minute showers, and I'm like, of course you do.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
To be the youngest. That's hilarious, though. Yeah,
it's
sure. Your parents are like, man, kids are complaining about either too
yeah,
long, not getting in, we're running late, hot water's running out. Now they have
right.
these tankless systems that always on hot water, and at least the old
Yeah.
days you knew that eventually you'd run out of hot water. But
And you wonder, and then, you wonder why Andrew's the favorite kid because, well, anyway, that's another story. We'll talk
he
about
gets
that
a
later.
15-minute shower, right? The
Right,
first
exactly. He's the cleanest. So, all right, today we're gonna, as much as I love talking about my family and like they're a really great family, but we're gonna talk about so with property and casualty insurance, it's I guess the analogy that we've kind of thought through is it's like lifting weights, right? And I've found this to be uh, very true in starting a career in insurance. You sort of have to like you feel like you're easing yourself into it, but at the same time you have to dive in completely, right? So you have to almost be consumed by the world around you as a producer to understand not only the insurance world, but what businesses are you insuring? What's their world look like? What are they coming up against? What are the risks and all that? So we're going to get into that, and then another part of that I'll sort of draw a line to is with our academy program. So we've been working really hard for the last year and a half to develop our academy curriculum, and one thing we've realized is that having a framework, not like throwing the book at you and saying, here, study everything, but knowing how to organize everything is way more important. So we'll dive into this topic, and I'll kind of let you kick it off, and then I think we have like 4 or 5 things we want to talk about here specifically.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, there's just so many parallels to what we do when you're younger, and specifically as it relates to sport that get applied in life, in the good and bad, on stuff. But I think, I mean, you can make an argument that a lot of industries share it, but for sure in the property and casualty insurance industry, like the parallels with sport, are just endless almost. And specifically, if you look at, it's not just like if you see, turn on the TV and watch a professional game, you're seeing people who are at the top of their game, and you're seeing, what they make things look effortless. What you don't see is literally the thousands upon thousands of hours that they will do in preparation so that when we're watching them on TV, they can do the things that they do.
Mhm.
Um, and if you think about a successful P&C agent, it's so many of the same things have to be done. And you just can't show up. You just can't show up at a proposal and be like, "Hey, I'm this great, super smooth talking person, and I dress nicely, and buy insurance for me." Like, it does not
Right.
work that way. You have to be putting in, and especially when you're starting out, you have to learn the habits of every day putting in the right amount of time because you're going to be overwhelmed. When we talk to the new people that we have coming on, we know they're overwhelmed.
Hmm.
Just because there's so much information, and if you don't have a good plan, like, hey, here's my schedule today. Here's what I'm studying. Here's what I'm prospecting. Here's what I'm doing my follow-ups. Here's what I'm doing my email. If you don't have that plan in place, you're just going to find yourself at the end of the day, really sinking lower and lower and lower, until it becomes overwhelming. And you're like, all right, I got to figure out a plan for this. So,
And I would say equal importance of knowing, like, so time blocking, people forget, I forget especially, is like, okay, so I'm going to start my day at 7:30 and I'm going to work on check my emails for 30 minutes, right? I will often find that myself is like, it's so I have a starting point, but equally important is the stopping point. You have
yes,
to
sure.
know that, okay, I'm only doing it in this time.
Yes.
Um, Great example is podcast editing for me personally.
Okay.
Carl Keen, he helps us with that stuff when he's
Yeah.
able to, but he's off playing rugby right now, so not able to use his services. But
Lucky
for
guy.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and which I'm thankful he's doing that, and that's what I wanted to be doing anyways, right? But the reality here is that podcast editing takes time. So I time block it and I say I only work on this during the weekends and that's it, right? Because Monday through Friday I got other stuff I got to handle.
Yep.
Podcasting comes on the weekend, so
Yep.
that's sort of how it works out. But that stopping point is equally important.
Yeah, 100%. And what we thought we'd talk about today would be something that often gets pushed to the wayside, and that is the education component of our job.
Yep.
So, one of my favorite characteristics of property and casualty insurance is the amount of things that change and then the amount of things that you learn really every day. And then have the ability to take that knowledge and help other people. And it could just be helping them in like talking to a client saying, "Hey, here's how someone in similar industry had a situation. Like, is this of concern to you?" And describe, here's what happened, here's what I learned.
Hmm.
And then can you in turn take that knowledge, and help them out on it. Huge, huge, huge part of and again, that's where you shift from that, "Hey, I'm just a salesperson," to now I'm an advisor. If you're
Hmm.
advising your clients of these are risks that you have, these are things that we've seen other people go through, and if you're the unlucky person that this happens to, we want to make sure that you have the best path out of this, on it. And here's how you can utilize insurance to have in your insurance program to do so.
Yep.
So that's of critical importance. And so how can you do that? And there's things in our industry like continuing education. You have to do 24 hours of licensing through approved courses, in every 2-year license renewal period. And I know there's people out there, that will be like, "Oh my gosh, my license is renewing. I don't have any CEs. I'm going to sign up for a bunch of classes and just try and cram things in and stress myself out this last week before my renewal." You can do those all online now, so
Right.
it's easier to be able to do that, versus in the old days, when I started, everything was in person. You had to go find a course and make sure it was
Hmm.
available and all those kind of things. So you certainly can delay and then cram your CEs at the end. But to me, you're just doing yourself a huge, huge, huge disservice, not just from the stress and the all that kind of stuff, but you missed out potentially on 2 years of incremental knowledge gain that,
Hmm.
because I promise you, the person who's cramming for at the end of their week is not going to retain any of that knowledge at all
Right.
the following week versus that same individual who said, "Hey, need it. No, I need these hours for the next 2 years. I'm going to research some classes that look like they could be helpful to me. I'm
Hmm.
going to space out these classes and take them over time."
Yep.
That person at the end of that 2 year period is going to be way more ahead of where they need to be as it relates to their knowledge level.
Yep.
So, and that's specifically for CEs. Or if you're pursuing like a designation, designations are wonderful because it's a pathway that it is out there. And we encourage all our team members to pursue designations. Um, I'm going to take a little bit of a counter argument to that, in that
Okay.
if you feel like that's a good pathway for you, I 100% encourage it. Like if you think that would be a
Yep.
benefit to you. For myself personally, I don't pursue designations, and again, would be welcome to hear people's feedback on it. And the reason being is I take classes that I think will be of the most benefit to me, not versus in a designation, they're saying these are the classes you must take to earn this designation. And if it's, let's say, an accounting class or something like that, I've taken plenty of accounting classes. Uh, I don't feel like I need to take a class because it's required for the designation. I would rather take a class that says, "Hey, this is something that is
Yep.
of interest to me, is I think timely to me, and utilize my time that way." So little kind of counterpoint on
Hmm.
our designations worth it. 100% they're worth it. I fully encourage people to do it again because of that pathway that has been laid out.
Yep.
Personally, for myself, I don't choose to do the designation piece. So,
Yeah, and I think if you're doing something specific, like if you're in a niche that, like for example, oil and gas, right? So they have the energy risk designation, ERIS, and so I got that one done, but that was
yep,
more because I'm specifically getting into this, and again, I need that knowledge about well control and operator director expense and all the other things that kind of go along with that. So
yep,
there are some niches where I think you'd probably find higher value than just a generalized overview of something.
100%. Yeah, fully agree with you on that. So, and the other piece too is, on continuing education. Again, that's a pathway. It's you sign up for a class, you follow their curriculum, you take it in the delivery mode. I'm a much bigger fan of carving out every day a little bit of time just to focus on learning. And it could be reading a newspaper, scanning a major newspaper like the Wall Street Journal or something like that.
Hmm.
That require a subscription, but in my mind, I think it's extremely worthwhile.
Yep.
Looking for articles, a good maybe 10-15% of the articles pertain to insurance in some form or fashion. It could be news about a lawsuit. It could be news about a large jury award. City of San Diego had won $105 million for a jury award
Wow.
on an employment practices matter that came up recently. And so, having awareness of what's going on, that allows
Yeah.
you then to communicate with insurance saying, someone's like, I don't know if I need this EPL insurance. What's it do? And hey, here's a real world example that if you picked up the Union Tribune last week, was in
Yeah.
there. It was a $105 million award
Yeah.
against the company for it. So
Hmm.
carving out a little bit of time each day, I think is immensely helpful. And if you think about that, and this is where we kind of get into that lifting weights analogy with PNC Insurance lifting weights.
Yeah.
Uh, if you say every 6 months I'm going to enter a competition and see how much weights I can lift, and you don't do anything leading up to that competition, you're going to do terrible on it.
Right.
Even if you could lift weights once a month, if you go to the gym once a month, you're going to have at the end of the year, you're going to be the same spot you were at the beginning of the year, if not maybe even a little bit behind, just as aging and all the fun things I learned about with muscular atrophy come into play as you get a little bit older. Um, so, with that, and the same holds true with educating yourself. So if you do consistently, you have a plan, you do it each day. Again, if 20 minutes a day towards continuing ed is the equivalent of spending 2 weeks at the end of a year studying subjects. So if people are like, well, I don't have time, or that's nonsense.
Hmm.
We all have the same amount of time. It's just how we choose to use that time and how we allocate that time
Yep.
on it. And we can all find 20 minutes at the beginning of the day, get your cup of coffee and dedicate that. And again, that progress you'll make will be the same as if that person, I'm going to follow a workout routine every day. I'm going to do these types of things. That person will see that progress at the end of the year and be like, wow, I did not think that was possible.
Hmm.
Um, Same holds true with studying your insurance. So.
Yeah, and for my producers out there, I would remind you too, like this is the same with prospecting, right? I mean, if you're not picking up the phone and putting in the conversations and trying to reach out to people, I mean, this you can apply this to anything, right? But yeah, specifically on the prospecting, like for because we've seen it, right? Producers start, oh, hey, I'm hot, I'm gonna get in there and I'm gonna start talking to everyone that I know. Suddenly they get an account. 3 months goes by. Oh, what am I working on, right? And you kind of lose that. So they're equal. It's tough to manage your time, but yeah, it's very true. If you don't, you're not going to be good at that competition.
100%. And competition for us is proposing business, winning new
Yep.
customers.
Yep.
And and even from a confidence level of, and again, if you've put in that 20 minutes a day, you've dedicated yourself to learning new topics, learning new subject, learning how it applies to our business owners.
Hmm.
Um, Again, game day, when those questions start coming your way, not only will you have the confidence, but then you also have the ability to answer questions that and starting out in this business, you're not going to have that knowledge level. And the
Yep.
person who puts that time in, day out, a year or 2 year, they're going to be just far leave behind their peers that are, oh, I'm just going to focus on this, or I'm going to jump into this for a little while, and then I'm going to jump into something else, and kind of bouncing all around. Versus insurance rewards that person who does the same good things every day.
Yep.
That builds up over time. Yeah. And the other piece too that, you know, we, I, I don't know if it's necessarily a fear that we live with our clients having claims, but we sell something that they hopefully never ever use.
Hmm.
And there's really two ways to find out, do you have good insurance? It's to do a careful audit of those policies and look through and see how it will respond. And again,
Right.
how do you do an audit? It's based upon the knowledge level that you have of what should be in a good policy, and then the knowledge level of, hey, here's what this client does, and then here's a page of their existing policy that says we don't cover this. Your ability to recognize those things and point that out and correct it if it's going a prospect we're going to bring on to the client
Hmm.
is of huge importance.
Yeah.
The other way people find out is if they have bad coverage is if they have an uncovered claim, which is a
Yep.
terrible way to find out. So again, with that, if you're putting that time in every day, every out, like it's almost your not almost, it is your responsibility as an advisor to these clients to, I got to make sure, and no one's going to expect you to come into this job and be like, hey, I know everything that a person who's been doing this for 5 years or 10
Hmm.
years or longer can do, but you can get to that path if you put that time in every day to do so. And that really is how you keep clients, and how you almost have to take that out as, hey, this is my responsibility. These people have entrusted me with their business, with their personal assets, and making sure these things stay secure. And you got to realize, wow, that's a pretty big responsibility. And so in turn, because they've entrusted me with that, now I am more motivated to make sure that I know everything I possibly can to make sure that I'm putting things in correctly for those people. When you think about it, it's a pretty awesome responsibility, especially if you're dealing like with friends or family, or
Hmm.
you know again, these are people that know you and like you and trust you, and you know you better make sure that you're doing the right thing for them as well.
At what point does that confidence, I guess confidence in yourself, confidence in your abilities, sort of like where does that actually take hold? Because what I've found for myself is that I will have the knowledge of something and I may be able to apply it, but being able to kind of stand on it and be like, I don't need anyone else to take a look at this with me is a hard thing to come by, right? Like it takes time to build that up. But you've been doing this a long time. You've seen a lot of people in this industry. Is there a moment where that light bulb goes off, or is that sort of, I don't know, is that sort of elusive?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great question. It's a great thing to think about. Um, and not sure if it's a cop out response of, I think it would be different for every person.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I think there's something very fulfilling to be like, hey, someone asked me a question. They have a really nice business. They're a successful business owner, and I
Hmm.
know the answer to that question. I was able to help them out, like,
Right.
the endorphins or dopamine or, like that should be something that this is why I do this job. I
Right.
was able to help out this person who is very successful and someone that people look up to in the community and has this great business and they had a problem and I was able to solve it. So I think
Hmm.
steps like that. And again, how do you get to be that way? It's by dedicating yourself to learning
Yeah.
and understanding these subjects. And it's not just reading something in a book and being able to recite it, but how can you relay that information and that to me comes from listening. So, when I'm talking to a business owner, I'm finding out, what's important because you could have two identical businesses and one person, could value a particular strategy.
Hmm.
And another person be like, no, I don't care. Like that's not a big deal to me. I'm okay with self-insuring this. Like that is not a concern for me. Okay, that's great. So listening, I think, is a massive skill for for any person in this position to be successful.
Hmm.
Being able to digest what's being told to them, being able to apply the knowledge that you've learned. And again, if you aren't studying, if you aren't making yourself better on this, then you're just a much less effective insurance broker or insurance
Yeah.
account manager. And I don't think anyone goes into a job thinking, how can I be the least effective person possible?
Right.
Um, but you can definitely come into this job and be like, wow, there's so much to do and there's so much certificates and so many.
Hmm.
And if you're not saying like, okay, I'm going to pause for a little bit and dedicate this time and I'm going to be uninterrupted. I'm going to turn off put my phone on do not disturb and all that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
I'm just going to spend this amount of time. I know that, hey, next week or next month or next year, when this question comes up, now I know the answer. And
Hmm.
now it's going to save time because I don't have to go back and ask someone or tell someone I don't know, which is, it's okay to tell people that as long as you
Sure.
go find the right answer. But, at the end of the day, you want to be able to be like, oh, here's how a similar client approached this, or here's
Yep.
what you want to think about. And there's a lot of times where, again, we deal with very, very smart people, but not all of them look at insurance the right way. And it's, powerful to engage with them. And like had a meeting with a guy yesterday, and he would always be like, point taken, follow up question was how he would respond to everything. I just thought it was kind of funny because like 6 times he was like, point taken, follow up question was just his way of being like, all right, I get it.
Yeah.
Let me ask about this. It was just kind of a unique way to phrase it that I thought was entertaining. So,
That
uh,
is, that I mean, that it gets him through, right? He knows exactly what he's looking for, and
yeah,
that's a good. Actually, I like that. That's a good. I don't know if I could do that, but maybe probably not with my wife.
point
Uh,
taken, follow up
but
question.
I
I thought
like
it was
that.
awesome.
It's a
So,
great idea. Who was I? Yeah, I just, I think what I've kind of like figured out too in trying to teach this stuff, if you can find somebody to mentor in some fashion, even if it's a small way, we're teaching clients all the time, right? I kind of view myself as more of a teacher than anything, which, whether it's because we have producers, we have account managers, and I'm trying to learn. The best way for me to learn something, though, I found is to find someone who's willing to listen and sort of repeating it back to them and
yeah,
working through it that way,
yep,
has been a really helpful way for me too. So I've kind of, not that you would think of yourself as a mentor, but if you can find someone to teach it back to, work with them, and see, and then ask, hey, does that make sense? Can you repeat it back to me? Then you've done a good job. And
yep,
a lot of times it just comes with repetition as well. So building
yep,
the academy, we have 12 weeks to build it. When I started, I was like, I don't have enough stuff to put into this. And a year and a half later, I've had to start cutting things out because, and high quality things that I'm like, because there's so much that goes into it now. And that's just because we're constantly trying to teach and figure out a better way to, share it with other people. So, teaching is another great way to actually learn.
Yeah. So constantly evolving, and again, that's what I think makes this job extremely interesting is that things you learn. Here's something that recently, in a conversation with a client, caused me to kind of rethink a little bit on how, because certain clients we've worked with for a long time, if they haven't had a lot of changes, we kind of get in this routine. And your point of talking to someone new about or taking on that mentorship causes you to kind of relook at things. So something just as business interruption coverage. When I started out, permitting was a pretty easy thing. You go down to the city hall or whatever, fill out your building permit, they stamp it, approve it, and you're good to go. You find your contractor, you build. 9 months later, you have whatever you kind of wanted to do.
Hmm.
What's going on with our governments across the US right now is
Yeah.
um, they're struggling to find people. They're struggle to staffing things, and something that used to take a visit down to City Hall can now be months, even years process. So when you're talking to a business owner, and hey, here's your business income limit. The old rule of thumb was kind of you look at about a year's worth of revenues, and you should be able to get up and going in a year. It's just not realistic in today's environment. And so just talking with them about that, like, hey, how long do you think it would take you if you had to rebuild this building? Let's just break this down. Like, how long to get permit? How long to find a contractor? How long to get your design? How long to get your materials? All these types of things. It's not a 9-month process anymore. And so something that we need to make sure we're doing then is, okay, is we've learned how coverage works, we learned how the world works around it, is making sure that we're then applying that knowledge and then educating our clients and not just being like, okay, here's your limit last year, here's your new limit, look good. It's no, let's walk you through. Here's what you need to think about because much easier to think about it in a nice quiet office when you're not stressed out about versus saying, hey, my building just burnt down.
Hmm.
Now what do I do?
Hmm.
Is my insurance going to be adequate for that? Like, again, 100% the wrong time to be having that kind of discussion.
Yeah. All good things there.
Yeah, just I guess my closing for this would be, okay, we've talked about a bunch of things here. What do you do? So my
Yeah.
challenge to all of you listening would be pick something that's of interest to you. Do a little research on, is there a course available that you can take on it, or is it just something you're going to study on your own? But dedicate 20 minutes a day to study this. I like to do it the first part of the day because that way it's just not lost in the shuffle of things. So the first 20 minutes of your day, grab your cup of coffee, pick your topic, study it, and just do that consistently every day for a month. Um, and again, at the end of that month, you're just gonna it's going to be this fantastic amount of knowledge that you've gained, and then just keep with that and just do that throughout your career.
Yeah.
And the dividends that small investment of time is going to pay to you, I mean, will be immeasurable. So that's my challenge. Go out there and do it.
Love it. All right. Well, I'm actually going to do that exact thing right now. I've got a meeting later and something I want to brush up on. So we'll jump into it. Thank you guys for listening to Falcon Forward. I don't know. We'd love to know what you want to hear, what you enjoy, what you don't. We look at the numbers too. We know the deep dives into the insurance topics like work comp audits may not be a topic for listening to in your car, but we're not here to just entertain. We want to also educate. So, thank you guys for being here. Yeah, we'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks.
Sounds great. Thanks, Peter.
Falcon Forward does not provide financial or insurance advice. The following disclosure is available at falconwest.com/privacy-policy. All information provided is for educational and entertainment purposes only. We encourage you to do your own research and consult with qualified professionals regarding your specific needs. If you have specific questions about your property and casualty insurance, our contact information can be found at falconwest.com. This content expresses the views of Falcon West Insurance Brokers Inc. as of the date indicated, and such views are subject to change without notice. Falcon West has no duty or obligation to update the information contained herein. Further, Falcon West makes no representation, and it should not be assumed that past insurance market conditions, coverage terms, or pricing are an indication of future results. This information is being made available for educational purposes only and should not be used as a substitute for insurance advice tailored to your specific circumstances. The information contained herein does not constitute and should not be construed as an offering of insurance coverage, a guarantee of coverage terms, or a binding quote in any jurisdiction. Certain information contained herein concerning insurance markets, industry trends, and risk performance is based on or derived from information provided by independent third-party sources. Falcon West Insurance Brokers, Inc. believes that the sources from which such information has been obtained are reliable. However, it cannot guarantee the accuracy of such information and has not independently verified the accuracy or completeness of such information or the assumptions on which information is based. This content, including the information contained herein, may not be copied, reproduced, republished, or posted in whole or in part in any form without the prior written consent of Falcon West Insurance Brokers, Inc. To obtain our property and casualty license information, please visit falconwest.com. Our California license number is 0616640.